We want to see in which ways we can create new object of our any structure. In this example, we created a new structure coach with one attribute ID. Then, in our main function, we created C1 variable which have data type coach with pointer, and we passed one value. This is default writing. Beside this, we can also create constructor for our structure. What is constructor? This will be function which will create for us new variable of our specific data type, in this case our specific structure, with specific values. Let's see how we can create constructor. In this case, on line 10, we created new function. This new function is new coach with one input variable. We are now not returning specific value, but in this case, we are returning specific structure with pointer. Because of that, on line 11, we are returning default writing of our coach structure with one value, and we are passing our input variable to our structure as new value. In our main function, we can create new variable as data type coach with pointer with our new coach function. We created our new variable C2, but now we are expecting from our new coach function new object of data type coach with one specific value. When we print our C2 variable, we can see that output of our C1 and C2 variables is the same. In this case, we created a constructor with input values. Also, we can create empty constructor like this. In this case, on line 13, we created empty constructor, and our function is new empty coach, because in this case we are only expecting one object which has data type coach with pointer, and that object is empty. Let's now, in our main function, create a new empty object with data type coach with pointer from our new empty coach function. We have a new C3 variable which has value of our new empty coach object. Let's now see how we can create our set and get functions and what we achieve with them. For this example, we will create a new structure user, and that user will have one attribute name. So now we want to create set function for our structure. What is exactly set function? Set functions are functions in which we will update specific attribute inside of our structure with new value. We want to create set name function, and that function will be connected with our user structure. First, we will write alias, and then we will write pointer to our structure. We will declare name of our function, and now we will write input variable which we will assign as a new value to our name attribute inside of our user structure. We will type alias name, and the data type of this alias will be string. In this function, we will only set new value. Because of that, we are not expecting anything from our function, and we won't have the output. We want to access our object, and because of that, we will type alias for that object, which in this case is u. Then we will access our specific attribute, in this case our attribute name, and then we will update our name attribute with our input variable. We created our set function for our attribute name. Let's now create new set function for our name attribute, like this. We must know in which way we connect our functions with our structures. In first case, we connect our set name function with our user structure with pointer. In second case, we created setName2 function, but this function is connected with user structure without pointer. What is the difference? Our first case is connected to pointer of specific model, which means that this function and that object share the same location. It means that this function can directly inside of implementation update any values for our attributes. On the other hand, second case is connected to values of specific model. This means that this function doesn't share the same location with this object. In final picture, our setName2 function can't directly update values of our attributes in our user structure. This implementation inside of our setName2 function will not have effect to our user structure. We can get values from that object, but we cannot update with new values that object. So in this case, this code will be dead code for us. Let's now write practical example in our main function. Here, we created a new variable p1 as data type user with pointer. Then we print location of our p1 variable and we print values when we access that location. We will access our p1 variable and we will call our setName function. To that function, we will pass one specific value as data type string. Next, we will print value of a name attribute of our p1 variable. After that, we again access our p1 variable, but now we want to set new value with our setName2 function and we pass new value. In this case, when we print value of a name attribute of our p1 variable, we won't have updated value inside of our object, and value of our name attribute will be still A413, because now we want to change value of our attribute with setName2 function. This function isn't connected with pointer of our user structure. That means that this function and that specific p1 object doesn't share the same location, so this update won't be successful. We created a new case with our new p2 variable. The pattern is the same because we also called setName and setName2 functions. Then what is the difference? We can call our functions from p1 object, which has data type user with pointer, and also with p2 object, which has data type user without pointer. In final picture, extremely big difference which we must understand is that when our function is connected with pointer of specific structure where we have p1 object, we will be connected with our pointer. But in case where we have p2 object, we will be connected to a specific location of that object. So logic is the same, but our starting point from where we will call our function isn't the same. In case where we have function which is not connected with pointer of our structure, we are only connected to specific values of that object. We are not sharing the same location with that object. So in this case, we cannot directly, inside of our implementation, set up new values for our attributes. At the end, we need to remember that we can call our functions from both states of our objects, in case where our object has pointer or in case where our new object doesn't have pointer. Now we understood how we can operate with our set functions. Let's now see how we write get functions. We created getName function which is connected to our team structure. You noticed that this function isn't connected with pointer of our team object. It's not necessary to add pointer because we only need values of that specific object. We can see that this function doesn't have input variables. Why? Because here we won't modify anything. We will just get specific value from our object. As output, we will specify data type of attribute which we want to get from our object. So in this case, on line 12, we return only value of our name attribute. We want to create also set name function so we can update with function value of our name attribute. Let's execute these two functions inside of our main function. We created t1 new variable of data type team with pointer. We access our t1 variable, then call our setName function, and we pass one string value. Now we want to call our getName function so we can get value of our name attribute. Our name variable will be value of the attribute name, and then when we print that variable, we can see new value from our last update. Let's explain why we need set or get function. In these examples, we set up or get specific value from our object with our functions. In previous sectors, we saw that we can do that directly to our object, like this. Here on line 24, we directly access our t1 variable and then directly access our name attribute. After that, we directly assigned new value to our attribute. Also, our name2 variable will have new value when we directly access our name attribute inside of our t1 object. Now, when we print our name2 variable, we will see new value of B413. If all this we can do directly, why we need set or get function? In simple scenario, we will have implementation where we will assign directly new values to our attributes. But in most cases where we will have more complex code, we will have many new protocols, regulations, or validations for our new object, which we must analyze before we assign any new value to our specific attribute. In those cases, we won't assign new value to our attribute, and instead of that, we will create our set functions. In case where we need specific values from our object, we will use get functions. In the next video, we will see how we can pass specific pointer as our input variable inside of our function, and we will see how we can pass specific structure with pointer to our function as input variable.